So over the last 30 years, we've seen an increase in the use of psychiatric medications. We're using more and more of these meds every day. Frighteningly, in 2018, which is what we're seeing here on this blue line, we had over 1 in 3 women over age 60 on psychiatric medications. And as you can see, it just kind of increases the older that they get. Unfortunately, this is likely higher than this 2018 figure shows, because we had a bump of about 10% during the pandemic. And so it really is a lot. Some people are wondering, okay, so well, if we look particularly at women who are taking the most psychiatric medications, what drugs are making up the lion's share of this? And what we see here is that most of it on this dotted blue line is coming from antidepressants. That's not a surprise to anyone. But what most people have missed is actually that benzodiazepines are the second largest use of these medications. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, because these can be very, very dangerous medications. Today, I've got Danny coming on the podcast. Danny got started on these medications at the young age of 13, and they've now caused substantial neurological harm. And she's going to be sharing her story. Danny, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Oh. So, Danny, why don't we just start here? Tell me the story. How did you initially get, why were you put on benzodiazepines when you were 13? How did that happen?
So, growing up, my home life was, for lack of better terms, a little rocky, pretty rocky. In that situation, my sister was dealing with a lot of mental illness. My father, was battling with alcoholism and a lot of mental illness as well. And in this situation, my home life just wasn't just a safe place for me. And I reached out for help. Things in school were a little rocky, the school that I was going to as well. So I just felt depressed and I didn't feel like myself anymore. And I knew I just wanted help. Mm-hmm. So my mom did what she knew best, and she just took me to doctors where I explained how my father was verbally abusive, the situations at home, everything I was going through. And they diagnosed me with bipolar at the age of 13 and started me on a laundry list of medications. I was actually allergic to antidepressants. I was having horrible reactions to them. So they were putting me on antipsychotics, seizure meds for mood stabilizers, and then the benzodiazepines as well. So that's how it all began. Basically teaching me at a young age that my situation, just not to get out of my situation, but let's just numb this kid, put a mental illness on her. And
yeah, because that kind of, that's interesting. Was this framed as, hey, Danny, we're trying to numb you out because, we can't do much about your family situation, which doesn't sound, very, like a very calm environment right now? Or was it presented as there's something wrong with your brain, you have bipolar disorder, that's why you're having all of these problems, even though there's clear stresses in your life? Like how was it presented, like, to you and your mom at that time? Like the rationale for being on like antipsychotic medications at 13?
Yeah. So for me as an adult and in my healing that I've gone through to try to understand it all was, number one, I believe that it was an insurance write-off. So I was in a transitional program where it was school-based, therapy-based. It was from 9 to 3, and then you leave. And in my adult life, to rationalize it, that I believe that the diagnosis was made to have a reason that we stay. To a bunch of the kids, we would talk about like, oh, what did they say you have? Like, what's going on, during times that we could talk. And that's all I could rationalize it. For my mother, I think her trust in the medical system was so high that if they say that this is it, then it must be. because she questioned a lot the safety of these medications, and they would just say, "Oh no, it's completely safe. Everything's fine." The antipsychotics, the first time I took them, I was completely out. Like I couldn't stay up. I was at the transitions place, and I had to they had to set down seats. I couldn't even stay up with the dose that they gave me. It was quite scary. And they were saying that I was on these because I couldn't be on the antidepressants.
Wow. Yeah, it's completely safe to put a 13-year-old on medications you use to sedate patients with schizophrenia and mania and, homicidal. What could go wrong to subject a 13-year-old to that level of sedation?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that doesn't surprise me. But let's try and give the devil his due a little bit. I have to ask you this because sometimes these medications are helpful. Was it helpful at the time? Giving it a fair shake, going back and looking at it. How did you feel about being on those meds? Because you were obviously going through a lot in your life. Let's not diminish that.
Yeah. So with this stuff and the traumas that were happening around me from a young age, and the things that were going on me in my home, when I first took the anxiety medicine, it was probably the best thing I ever felt. I'm gonna get emotional too, because it's just the way my life path went then, is that just as a kid, a 13-year-old girl in general, or just a 13-year-old child, life is scary. Life is confusing. You got so much going on. But then given the abuse and the things that were going on in my life, when I took that Klonopin, it was just, I felt peace and I was able to relax. I didn't have the anxiety going to school, being in my house. I just felt so relaxed. Like it was a gift and a curse, at the moment it felt like a gift, like, oh, this is the answer. And with the antipsychotics, I would take them and I would sleep for hours. So I would never use them as they were directed. I would use them to sleep for 24 hours all day. I'd just get up, use the bathroom. And that's where I kind of realized, oh, I could put myself in self-induced comas of some sort and just escape life. So I don't think they ever actually, I do feel that the benzos were helping me initially be able to live my life and not feel the way I was feeling. Then the antipsychotics, I just was using those wrong from the beginning.
Yeah. And if this is, you don't have to answer this you don't have to answer if this is overly personal, but if you can put yourself back in your shoes when you're a teen, what were the anxieties that were so uncomfortable that it was causing you to just relish in the fact that you could just numb that? Was this fear about things at home? Is this relational stresses at school? Is this academic performance? How do you understand the things, the feelings that you were trying to escape from?
So the anxieties that I was dealing with at 13 all started when I was younger. About 4 years old, I had some traumas happen to me at that point. As the years were going on, my father's mental illness was increasingly becoming crazier, more erratic, along with his drinking. And I was the one in the house that he would seek out in his anger and things like that. My sister I have an older sister, and she was dealing with a lot of suicidal ideation, depression, anxieties of her own, and going through a lot. So there was a lot of worry and anxieties with that, not knowing if my sister was going to be suicidal at that time, and not knowing what kind of dad I was going to walk into. He was like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation. And then my mother was, really focused on helping them. And as well as, being a teenager in school, my school was a kind of place where it was, you never know if you're going to fist fight in the bathroom, angry, didn't feel safe as well, and things like that. So all around, I just didn't really have a safe place to relax or feel comfortable or be myself. And so that's basically what led me to asking for help. I just felt like, what's going on in my life at this moment? Everything was erratic. Things were getting violent, abusive, just crazy. And I just needed help. I felt sad.
Yeah. Sounds like totally normal things that someone would feel anxious about. I mean, if you walk into your home and you don't know whether, you're about to get, abused in some way, that's a good reason for having anxiety. If you don't know that, if there's going to be a fist fight happening at school when you go into the bathroom, that's like another reason to be on edge. But I guess instead of, getting the support to navigate those situations, and some of these things are hard, let's not diminish how hard it is, if your dad's having his own mental health problems. I mean, there's not an easy, quick fix for a lot of these things. And so there really are complicated problems, but they're real. So let's move on from this now. So you're taking them in school, they're working. Tell me the story about how they went from, being this thing that was helpful to you deciding that you wanted to come off later on. How did that come about?
So I realized that if I said, oh, I can't really sleep at night, or my anxiety is still pretty bad, that they would up my dose. So I started off, I can't honestly remember, but I'd say it was probably 1 to 2 a day. Probably 0.5 of Klonopin a day. And that was just like that to 4 a day. And so now I have 4 throughout the day. And when I was 14 years old, I had 2 pretty significant assaults happen to me within a 6-month period. I didn't feel that I could go to anyone. I don't even think I wanted to even believe that it really happened. And I feel like that's the pivotal moment where the usage of Klonopins got worse. And I would not take them every day. I would say some, and I would take multiple one day and then skip a day. I would just sleep that day, the next day with the antipsychotics or something. So ration it out like that, as well as my father, increasingly, his behavior is getting erratic. My life just turned into numbing. I started drinking alcohol, smoking marijuana, hanging out with crowds that, when I look back now, the things that I was doing, I didn't have any of that gut instinct that would say, hey, we shouldn't be here right now, or we shouldn't be doing this right now, because I just feel that the Klonopin just wiped me clear of my intuition, my senses, and the direction I was just going in, which is numb. Because everything kept getting sadder, more painful, more scary in my life the older I got as the years passed. So it just kept progressing to the point where I had the doctors prescribing me higher milligrams, more Klonopins a month. And I would really just be able to just go in, hey, this is what a 5-minute conversation is what it just, hey, yeah, blum, blum, blum. And they'd write me more scripts, and then I'd be on my way. So, yeah. And then the turning point, I mean, it got to the point when I was 19 years old, my father ended up committing suicide. And at this point, I could take anywhere between 20 to 30 of them a day. And I wouldn't do that. Yeah, I wouldn't do that every day. And they weren't all from the doctor, though. I was then purchasing them on my own, but also getting a bunch from the doctor. My addiction was out of control. Yeah. So I actually, I was told that I wouldn't be able to have children. I had some issues where I was told I wasn't going to be able to have children. And I got pregnant at one of the lowest points in my life. At this point, the doctors tell me to continue on my meds. They don't know where I'm at, though, with my medication and the use of my alcohol and everything. I quit cold turkey. And this was when I was 21, I got pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And that was...
What was that like, coming off that many benzodiazepines right after discovering you're pregnant, stopping the alcohol, kind of clearing your body out? What was that like?
I was violently sick the entire pregnancy, where, I mean, it never, I had to pull up a stool to wash my dishes. I was always dizzy sick. But the first 2 weeks, I had multiple seizures. I couldn't sleep at all. Like I would shut my eyes and then jolt up. I had no idea that no one ever sat me down since I was 13 years old and said, hey, you can't just stop this medication. This medication is extremely dangerous. I didn't know any of the side effects. And honestly, up until about the last 4 or 5 years, I didn't even know how neurologically this stuff could be tied to the issues that I'm having now. I didn't know if you mix it with alcohol or painkillers that you could die. It could be fatal. I had no idea. No one ever educated me on the medicine that they were prescribing me so much of. But yeah, I had seizures. I couldn't sleep for about 2 weeks straight. My sleep was greatly interrupted the rest of the time, but I was so sick. But I stopped everything because it was one of the greatest gifts to be able to become a mother. And it was really the turning point where I was like, I never want to touch these again.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, walk me forward from here. So what happens after the baby is born? Because I do know from the video that you sent in that I think you end up coming off for good when you're 27 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like you end up back on later on. What's that story about?
So after I had my daughter, I had a C-section. I was refusing the pain medications and everything. I would take the Tylenols, but I don't want anything. Unfortunately, the situation of her biological father was a very abusive situation. About a year in, it got extremely scary, abusive, kind of really took the rug underneath my legs. Like I wasn't prepared for the situation that I was in. And given that I've never built coping skills, I never learned how to deal or feel with anything really. And when everything got too heavy, I was like, I need help. And I went back because I was like, I need something. And I went to the doctor and got the script. And I told myself this time though, I'm going to take it as needed. And I never purchased extra benzodiazepines in a drug, dealing way ever again. But I just said, look, I'm going to take them as needed and how they're prescribed and everything's going to be all right. And it would be 2 or 3 weeks in and I'd look at my script and I'm like, did I take more? Like I was taking more than than it was saying. And I'm like, how does this happen? Like, what am I doing? And then I would try to quit again. And I would just stop taking them for a month or two. And I'd feel just on edge and nervous and just couldn't relax. And so I'd go back, I'd get them again. Okay, but this time I'm just going to take them as needed. And I just couldn't get off of them.
Mm-hmm.
There was go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, you go. Yeah.
Okay. There was a time period, I believe in 2013, where I was researching about them and I actually found an article that said they were tied to Alzheimer's and dementia and that they could change the state of your brain. And there were times where I had the same PIN on my debit card forever. And I would go to scan my card to pay for my food order or something. And I wouldn't be able to remember the numbers. And I would just stand there like, forget it. And I would have to leave my whole food order there because I couldn't remember the numbers that I've had for so long. And I just remember thinking, well, that's really strange. And then I had my best friend, she would tell me, Danny, are you like, this just happened on Tuesday. Like you don't remember at all? And I don't remember at all. So when I read that article, it scared me so much. Like, is this why I'm having this cognitive issues? I'm not remembering things. I'm forgetting numbers that I remembered forever. And I really tied it to that. That really stuck it to me. Like, you got to get off of these. Like, you got to. But I still don't know about tapering at this point at all. I just keep cold turkey. But it was never as much as before I got pregnant. I never was on that much. So I never had seizures again. So that was a plus. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think there's two things that happen with the benzos, and your story is really typical from what I hear. One is, if you feel sedated on a medication, yes, obviously you may not remember things as well, but I actually think they impact memory processing because benzos disrupt the way that you sleep, and when you're in REM sleep, you actually store your memories so you can remember them better. And because of the effect that benzos have on sleep, we think that it actually impacts the way people remember things. And so when I talk to a lot of my patients right now, when during those periods of their life when they're on benzos, they look back and they can't really remember them. They'll have like a decade of time, and they'll just they'll look at photos and they'll be like, yeah, maybe, but they've really lost it. They haven't really consolidated memories from that period in their life, and so that's really common. What happened to you?
Yeah, and it's scary when that just starts taking bits of your memory, or even being able to study and remember things. I'm just like, what is? I didn't understand what was happening to me at all. Yeah.
So walk us forward from there. So you're now taking them as prescribed for the most part. What happens to have you decide to come off when you're 27?
So I just felt it was probably a year after I read that article, and I could realize, okay, like something's going on with my mind. Because it wasn't, I knew, if I didn't remember, I drank too much, or I took too much medicine. I knew, okay, I didn't remember. This was different. I felt in my gut, like something's really wrong. And the whole time I kept trying to quit drinking, quit the benzos. I just wanted to give my daughter a life that I didn't have. I wanted her to have love and stability, safety, and who am I if I keep having these crutches? I'm never looking back and fixing anything. And I just kept thinking, like, what would I want for her? And I just got to this pivotal moment where I was just like, no matter what, I'm not going to touch it anymore. And I quit drinking. I quit everything. I started researching different ways to take care of your body, how to fuel it and feed it. And I mean, that was really just the start. And I had started dating a man who was in a program, and he was sober, and he had battled addiction with heroin from getting in a motorcycle accident. And we started dating, and he had 3 years sober, and I would tell him all this stuff. At this time I was still drinking, but like trying to quit. And when I was around him, he would, let's go fishing, let's go do this. And I started actually seeing there's this whole world and way to live because growing up, everybody's just, we're going to have brunch, we're going to have mimosas, or we're going here, we're going to have drinks. And it was just so hard to get off the drink train because everyone was on it. And just with my will to want to be better, and with him showing me this whole sober life, I never looked back.
Wow.
Yeah.
And okay, so what happened? So tell me your story about coming off the benzos, because like, what was that like?
So in a physical sense, the nervousness, it was, I don't even know how to put it into words, but I felt like I was completely and utterly insane. Like I could never relax. And it just, for years, because like I say, like, alcoholics can detox, and, other drugs you can detox from, and you kind of have to battle something else after so long, but the need for it goes away. But I feel like with the benzos, just years of having that feeling that like only a benzo is going to fix this. So, really shaky. I had a problem where my hands would shake for years and years, and they finally, that has stopped, but that took a very long time for that to stop. My sleep, I still can't. That's one thing I prayed nightly for, is I can't sleep. So I will wake up constantly all throughout the night. And it's been 10 years where it's the magnesiums, the valerian roots. I do the teas, everything. I've tried so hard, and it's been 10 years, and I can fall asleep, but I just constantly wake up. Like, I don't think I ever get into the REM sleep, like the REM sleep. So that was hard. And dry heaving, I felt for a very long time, just very like nauseous when not having the medication.
So Danny, tell me, what was the experience like coming off the benzos?
So coming off the benzos was honestly the hardest thing. Even to this day, I still have issues. It's been 10 years since ever touching a pill. I can't sleep at night. So I go to sleep, I can sleep fine, but then I constantly wake up throughout the night. I'll wake up at 11, I wake up at 12, I wake up at 2, and I never had a steady, restful sleep for years now. Initially coming off, the nervousness, extreme shakiness, I still jump at sounds. It's as if my nervous system has never actually stop feeling like it's on fire. And that was something that would always cause me to go back to the medicine or take a pill, because it really feels like you're so terrified, and that your nerves are just so sensitive. Everything's sound and everything is just so sensitive. It won't go away. And if I would take a Klonopin, it would relax that all. And that's just something that's been long term for years now, that I just became my norm because I don't ever want to go back. And I feel, what would have happened if I would have known about a taper? Would this be my everyday situation? Would I have to live like this? I don't know, because I was on it for so long. The only thing that I could say is after the second time I really stopped, is that I was just thankful I didn't have any more seizures, because that was, wow. I've never had seizures before. So having that alone after the first time was, for days, was just terrifying. But I think the biggest situation for me is that the withdrawal, I feel like it doesn't stop. So you just constantly feel like, well, if I just took this would all go away. It's not, you get drug addicts, alcoholics, they battle this physical withdrawal for so long, and then the rest of it's like a codependency, issue that you have with the medication that I've gotten rid of with, other alcohol and other substances. But with the benzodiazepine, it's so demonic in a way that it just never leaves you. It's like you're just constantly in this state of withdrawal years down the line. It's just so scary that that's what made me really want to start telling my story.
Yeah. And is it getting better over time, or does it seem like it's just kind of, it's still the same, and it's been consistent for the last several years?
So my sleep, unfortunately, I haven't found any remedy for that in the natural sense of, like, I would say magnesium or valerian root, just trying all the teas. That hasn't gotten any better. But I can say that my shakiness, I don't constantly shake anymore. My hands, I could never have a steady hand, and that's gotten a lot better. It took a long time, but that's a lot better. The nausea, that got way better. That's gone. I just constantly felt like a need to dry heave. If I didn't have benzodiazepines, that's lifted. I did, however, start training my body in ketosis and learning about ketones through researching about a bunch of stuff. And my body actually more led me there than I did, because I was doing a very raw, vegan, clean juicing situation to try to heal from all the damage I've been doing since 13. And I started getting allergic to a lot of these things that I was eating, and I started actually craving meat, and one thing led me to the other. And when my body started learning to burn fat for fuel and going into ketosis, going a more carnivore way, my body has felt, my nervous system feels so much better, which Great. I got chills, because I never thought I could attain that feeling, and to feel that it's not perfect yet. If a pot, I'm always the jumpy girl, something falls, a pot falls or something, and it's been a little over a year with this new way of trying to heal the nervous system through bats as fuel. And it's really been life-changing. So that's helped a lot.
So let's go back and, so you've been through this journey now. Looking back at your life, you were put on meds at a really young age. What was the help that you think you would have loved to have received back when you were going through all of this as a kid that you didn't get?
If I could go back, I feel I did have a therapist at that time that was so helpful. He was awesome. And I wish that there was more of him and the adults that were around me. I actually wouldn't know. I actually sometimes say that I wouldn't know what I would have done without Klonopin, given the home situation I was having and then the violence and the things that my life led into as a teenager and early 20s, that I don't know if I would have been able to even deal with that situation without being taken out. So ideally I would have liked, but what would foster care have looked like, like would that might have been super traumatic as well. So I just think that all around, the accountability that we take for ourselves, you pass that down to your children. So the more healthy, mentally stable adults that can be in children's lives, I feel like that would only be the thing that could have helped me or removing myself.
Yeah. And that's what most people that work in child and adolescent mental health, what they talk about is that the treatment isn't the kid, the treatment happens with the parents. And oftentimes the parents will send the kid to go and see the psychiatrist or the therapist, and they're like, we're too busy. But it really is that, the parents regulate the children. The mother is there for safety and security, and the father's there generally for protection, to help kids recognize risks, to navigate, authority, the outside world, and also sometimes there to be a coach, ideally, when things get difficult and the kid's like, I don't want to do that, I'm afraid. You kind of need someone to in your ear, just like, don't worry, Danny, you've got this. It's scary, but, I'll catch you, I'm right there. And you get this kind of this yin and this yang, right? Where the mom is ideally makes the child feel safe and loved and emotionally stable when they're having problems. And the father helps the child feel competent and brave, but also be able to navigate the outside world. And you can't do that with a 13-year-old or a teenager or something like that. You have to help the parents be able to step into that role, which they may be struggling with, because, trauma is intergenerational. If you have a traumatic upbringing, then, a lot of the times that you don't learn these things, and then it kind of passes on and on and on. But that's really where the intervention happens. I'm so happy you made that point, because I think that's what's needed.
Yeah. And that's, if I never would have had divine intervention of getting pregnant, I would never be the woman I am today. And it was, a hard pill to swallow. Like, you're going to repeat if you don't heal. Like, you got to get out of this situation. You can't just numb it. You can't just keep running from things, and that's just, I feel the biggest thing that Klonopin has taken from me was all those years of my adolescence, of growing up, of maturing. And for the last 10 years, it's been humbling and so painful, but at the same time, so awesome to see, oh my goodness, like I was all the way over here and now I'm here. Because you're put on a medication like that. I didn't have coping skills. I never went through all my insecurities. There's just so many levels of mental maturity and just things that you go through as a teenager and in your 20s that I never did. And so for the last 10 years, it's been tremendous work. But I just feel like if I don't do it, that this is where it's going to stop, you know, like this, we cannot ever repeat this. We have to grow. We have to reflect. We have to look back. And I think about all those years I lost. Like, I'm trying to learn how to drum now. I have a DJ deck. I start drawing, like I'm doing, and it's like, I got to go back to that 13-year-old, that 14-year-old, 15-year-old who doesn't know who she is, you know, and finally just start growing.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of humility to recognize that and want to go and do it. And, you know, one of the therapies that I find so helpful for people, especially when they've had disruptive childhoods, whether it's either with their mom or their dad, is DBT. It's called dialectical behavioral therapy. And it's all about being able to soothe yourself, because a lot of people who grow up in traumatic environments, they don't learn how to do that, and their emotions can get the better of them. They act in ways that aren't characteristic of how they normally would act, and so you learn the self-soothing. You also learn a lot of skills as well, and it's things like that putting the time in, doing these helpful therapies that allow you to, in many ways, transcend your trauma and build a better life for your children and build a better life for yourself later on.
Yeah, definitely. I actually, over the years was just trying to do everything. I read tons of books, did everything I could to heal myself. And I was just finally like, I gotta go. Like I gotta go somewhere. And I went to a place in Colorado for CPTSD, and they taught us about that. They taught us so much, and it was life-changing. It really taught me a lot.
Yeah. Well, Danny, those are all the questions that I have for you today. Do you have any final thoughts or a message that you'd want to leave for the audience or for your younger self, if she's out there listening right now? I'll give you a moment just to share any parting thoughts that you want to make.
Yeah, I guess I would tell my younger self that she's stronger than she realizes, that these feelings that feel like they're going to swallow her whole and potentially just kill her because it's so painful, that if she feels them, that you always get to the other side. I always felt like it was just too much to take, too much to go. And when I actually started feeling my feelings and going through the things, maybe I would cry and cry and cry, but eventually the crying stopped. Eventually I got the feelings out, and I would just want her to know that she was braver than she seemed. And anyone that's a parent or feels, just to educate yourself on the medications. How old is your child? Think about, what are they eating? Could the different processed food, sugars be acting a behavioral situation? Is there any natural intervention that can be taken before we put them on this medication? And research the medication. Is this long-term? Are they going to have to live with this medication if they come off like disabilities and things from the medication? Just really do your research, because I just feel like our children are getting the short end of the stick with our food system, with the medications, and there's a million different ways to heal. And if we just really educate ourselves and then take an educated guess, but look at from all the angles. So that's really all I'd want. Is I don't want another kid to just parents who just, no, this is safe. She can be on it, and we'll just keep giving her more. And, so that would be all I really got to share.
Great advice. Well, Danny, I think you are remarkable. I think you are very wise. And I just want to say, and brave as well, because anyone who goes through what you've gone through, and benzo withdrawal, and what sounds like 10 years of a lot of suffering, and who has dedicated themselves to not relying on meds, you have to be brave. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share your story with me and my audience.
Right. Thank you so much. And thank you for all your interviews. They really helped me a lot as well.
Yeah. If you like this video, you're not going to want to miss this one over here.